Hi, everybody. I'm Marjorie Krause, and I'm the founder and executive chair of APCO Worldwide, and I've been given the privilege of moderating this session, and I hope we're going to learn a lot together. We're here today to talk about Saudi Arabia, which has long been an enigma around the world, but has quickly emerged as an economic powerhouse, hitting a total GDP surpassing $1 trillion for the first time. And with all the disruption around the world, Saudi sits between the East and West, caught between competing versions of the world, and while it aspires to be one of the top 15 economies in the world. So we're lucky to have some real experts today to address these questions. My questions first, and then I hope there'll be a lot from the audience. But we have 5 ministers from Saudi to talk to us, and I'd like to introduce them to you and then get into the questions. So I'm going to introduce them just by title, because you all had a chance to read about their backgrounds. And so all the way at the end is the Minister of Economy and Planning, Faisal Al Ibrahim. Next to him is the Minister for Communications and for Information Technology, Abdullah Al Swaha. Next to him is Her Highness Princess Haifa Al Saud, who is the Assistant Minister of Tourism. And then next to, I'm just looking to see who's next here, we have Mohammed Al Jadaan, who's the Minister of Finance. And next to me is the Minister of Investment, Khalid Al Faleh. So welcome all of you, and let's get right into it. So I'd like to start, Faisal, with you, if we can. And while we're going to be talking mostly about the economy and what's happening, we can't talk about Saudi Arabia without first talking about oil. And I just wondered if you could comment with the Vision 2030 and the economic plan that I've seen, contemplates diversification of the economy through moving away from fossil fuels. Now that the cost of fossil fuels is so high, are you going to double down while you can, or are you going to continue along the path of diversification?
Good morning, Marjorie, and good morning, everyone. I think this week has been a very energizing and inspiring week, and it's culminating in this final panel with 4 of my inspiring colleagues. To your question, I'd say our policies are clear. Energy demand from oil will continue to increase, and that's a consensus of experts around the world. We will continue to increase capacity, 13.4 million barrels a day, maximum sustainable capacity, and we will continue to advocate increased capacity. We will also continue to advocate climate change and reducing emissions. These 2 points do not contradict each other. We believe that the last thing we want is focusing on climate change without focusing on energy security and energy development, economic development. I'd say the last thing we want to see is having to go back to burn the dirtiest kind of coal in a time of need. Lastly, and we have examples of that, the Saudi Green Initiative, the Middle East Green Initiative, our ambitions and moving towards 50% of our energy utility demand coming from renewables by 2030. These are all moving according to plan, and we can share more details about them. Lastly, I'd say we will continue steadfastly and absolutely our drive to diversify our economy. This increase in oil revenue or oil activities will only help us get there faster and more effectively. The Saudi economy is projected to grow 7.4% this year. Last year, our non-oil activities grew at 6.1%, and we want that trend to continue. The first quarter of this year saw a growth of 9.6% compared to the last quarter, same quarter last year, and that's the largest since 2011. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And Khalid, I'd come to you because we're hearing about all this growth. Where is Saudi on its growth journey? Is this a trend that's going to continue? Is it sustainable? And I know foreign direct investment increased in the first quarter. Are people at the front end of that wagon, or what's a good time to come?
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be back at Davos in person. I just want to echo what Faisal said. The kingdom is on plan, in fact, ahead of plan on many metrics. Not only our GDP growth, we're crossing the 1 trillion threshold on our way to 1.6 to 1.8, which we project will position us as the 15th largest economy. We, in terms of investment, did issue a detailed national investment strategy that brings all of the investors, all of the players, that unveils all of the sectors, that provides all of the enablers from funding, financing, the regulatory environment, all of the input factors, leading us to a diversified economy by unlocking some of the new exciting sectors that have so much potential and so much competitiveness in the kingdom. We wanted to increase our total capital formation in absolute terms, but also as a percentage of our rapidly increasing GDP. We were at 20% of GDP, going to 30% of our much larger GDP. Happy to report that in 21, we reached 23% of a larger GDP. In terms of absolute terms, our target in this trajectory was to reach $175 billion of total investment. We almost hit $20 billion investment. So a significant overshoot. FDI, which is a key catalyst for total investment and a vehicle for bringing technology, know-how, global partners. Many of them are with us in the room. We were at less than 1% of GDP. We're going to 5.7. We reached 2.3% of GDP. In 21, our total FDI reached $20 billion, 4x of what it was when the vision was launched. So everything is projecting. And I think more importantly than everything I've said about the quantum and the numbers is the qualitative components. Almost all of the investments, not all, but many of the investments I talked about are in new sectors. It's in tech. His Excellency Swaha can talk about it. It's in tourism. Her Highness will talk about it. It's in e-mobility. We just broke ground on the world's most exciting electric vehicle assembly plant, 150,000 vehicles that will be assembled in Saudi Arabia in 2 years. And this is one of likely 3 mega assembly plants. All of the giga projects, what the PIF is doing in unlocking and catalyzing sectors that are open for foreign direct investment.
And I hope we'll get into that with the audience. And you should be preparing your questions too. You'll never have a panel of such expertise available to you. So please be ready to do that. But I do want to turn to Mohammed. You know, in terms of the Minister of Finance, what role does fiscal policy play in attracting these investments, and how do you contribute to that?
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank WEF for making this possible in person again. I think investors want 3 things. They want credibility, and we have that through various institutional reforms that we have done. They want predictability, and we are actually maturing significantly compared to where we started, and now we talk to the investors, we communicate with investors, we take them and their feedback seriously, and then transparency, which is very dear to my heart, and I think public data will need to be available to the public, and we have gone actually a long way in that. There is a lot to talk about in terms of fiscal discipline and the fiscal sustainability program, and I'm more than happy to answer questions if there are. I just wanted to save the time.
I think that we all admire, too, the way that you were able to balance fiscal policy while dealing with the epidemic. I think many countries around the world really struggled, and maybe if we have time, we can get into what you could teach us.
I think that very quickly, I would say, while the world faced COVID, and we all suffered from it, in Saudi Arabia and few other countries, but in Saudi Arabia particularly, we faced a dual shock, the COVID and then the plunge in oil prices. And while the whole idea of Vision 2030 came about to really deal with diversification of the economy, the reforms at